able to take care of my family. So you can't really like fight injustice by, well, screw you, I'm not going to work for you, or I'm going to get a whole bunch of people who can't do this, because a lot of us depend on that job, and it's kind of hard to go against a person who's giving you all your money. So
right, and if you are a whistleblower and they do fire you, then the means of reciprocity is going to the court system. Well, that's extremely expensive. It's extremely time consuming, and Amazon, of course, has all of those in their pocket. They have
Well,
the money,
and
and they have
people
the
don't
lawyers
know
that
their
have done.
rights.
And a lot of
Yeah.
people, like, you have to sign contracts when you work there. I don't know for sure about Amazon, but I've heard other places where you
Everywhere has
agree never to
contracts now.
sue, only to pursue like arbitration with the company itself.
Right, and that's the thing, like,
one-on-one.
Oh,
No,
well, there was that big
like class
case.
action. Yeah, I heard a little bit because I was listening to Mike Dicta, but like half listening,
Shout
so I
out.
don't remember the name of the case or anything. But
that is a growing concern. Like
Is that Janice?
with like
No, that's the
mandatory
union dues.
arbitration for sexual assault cases or sexual harassment, where and this kind of goes with today's politics with non-disclosure agreements about what people are contracted to, about what they can say and what they can't say. There's been a lot of concern about arbitrating sexual harassment claims with your employer, and then using arbitrators that are picked out by the employer or not necessarily neutral, or it's about what the perception is. And I think that's where we kind of run into issues. Like, should people be able to get remedies outside of arbitration for cases that, they're criminal in nature? So if they had a means to prosecute, that's one thing. But to get any kind of liability or punitive damages out of these horrendous cases, there's not very many legal avenues that people can pursue.
In addition to Bernie Sanders' fight with Amazon, he also came out with a plan for kind of a Medicare for all, and it's kind of I think it's gaining traction with a lot of Democrats in Congress as well. But there was a Medicare for All study that came out by was it called the Mercatus Center? It's based out of the I think it was George Mason University, which is kind of a more conservative university.
Think tank.
Yeah, and so it's a think tank out of that university that's funded by the Koch brothers, and so they actually produced a study that showed that of course Medicare for everybody would of course cost a lot, but also in the study it also said that Medicare for all would actually save money for all of us in the entire healthcare system if it actually went through. So it was kind of a double-edged sword. Some of the media mostly picked up on the overall costs that it would take to really transform healthcare, but some of the news outlets also picked up on the fact that the study also said that it would save hundreds of billions of dollars in the system.
Well, the study itself, it left the column where it was supposed to calculate overall savings blank.
Right.
And the headline of the study itself was just like, government spending to increase by,
Right.
What was it? The government spending is supposed to increase by.
Right. It would increase by how much the private health insurance would actually be. But that's not really the issue, because we're all really paying for it in some form or fashion. It's either the government pays for it or we give the money to private insurance organizations. But what this study did find was that it would actually, overall in the healthcare, it would actually save us more money.
Yep. It's just like a tricky marketing example. Like, look at the one figure that is favorable to your cause. And the funny thing is, though, that in doing so, they also, compiled and released information that made it clear that, this makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. And that obviously wasn't the goal of the study, but...
Right. So I think that then their next argument is, okay, well, it shows savings, but all of our taxes are going to have to increase, substantially. But, obviously the counter argument is, we're already being taxed that much. It's just not by the government. It's by, health insurance and, hospitals. The whole healthcare system is a tax on all of us. And so the study basically said, yeah, it's going to cost us a lot, but it'll basically shift who's paying for what, but in the end, it's going to save them money.
Yeah, but then I'm also concerned that eventually that would get a lot of pushback from, like, pharmaceutical companies and stuff, because that money doesn't just disappear. It goes to, like, I don't know. I don't really know how that works, I guess. But, yeah, I guess I'm all for, making it easier for people to survive, obviously. But I just am worried about pushback it could get even from the people who are losing that money, like that profit where the money was going before.
Oh, like what
Right.
those industries, like what
Yeah, the
kind
industries
of shady
that are
stuff they're
profiting off of.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's gonna there'll be like crazy nasty things that they'll pull.
I mean, I think a lot of that is like lower administrative costs, which are
Well, that would be
really,
good,
really, really high within the private market.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing with like a nationalized system like that is like part of the reason you drive the overall cost down so much is like you have this single payer negotiating for costs, and if you look at the way that things are set up today, it's like when you have so many different insurers, private payers, and people who are going like, say, I mean, there have been a lot of studies released recently where it's like, say someone goes in for a kidney surgery and they have like a certain insurance, someone who goes in for the exact same procedure at the same hospital can be charged a vastly different rate for the same service based on who their insurer is or if they're paying themselves, because each insurer it negotiates with the hospital on their own terms, and some of the more powerful ones get better rates. And it's like when you have the government doing all of that and as the only negotiator, they're going to get like one hopefully like low rate.
Right.
So, but as Abby said, like pharmaceutical companies hate this. A lot of, providers hate this. Like you're taking some of the insane and like illegitimate profits out of the medical industry, which is scary to them.
Just profiting off of people paying you because they need to do so to live.
Yeah.
It's evil.
I was having a discussion with one of my buddies. He is in the Air Force and he has more conservative views than I do. But he was talking about state medical assistance and how it affects national Medicare systems. So if we were because he's very against Medicare and all that things like that.
Medicare for all.
Medicare for
Your
all.
buddy who's
In the
probably on like
Air
Force insurance. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So he's on he is on the VA, which is
Right. I mean, he's
Right,
active
another
duty,
form
so
of-
he's doing things. But I mean, so I was talking to him, and he was saying how, me, Anthony, paying into my, Medicare insurance, or, we get all of our taxes pulled every month or every paycheck, and, my money is going towards someone in Texas who needs heart surgery, right? And let's just say, for example, and I don't know any actual medical statistics, but say Texas is more prone to people with heart disease and heart attacks and things like that, just based on cultural whatever.
Barbecue.
Right. We're paying Minnesota. I mean, if you think about like Minnesota citizens are paying into Medicare, which is subsidizing Medicare costs for people in Texas who are receiving this life care treatment, blah, 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 blah. People don't like paying for money that they don't get to use. So like Medicare, I don't go to the hospital very often except for dire emergencies. I don't use my Medicare benefits all that much. Or I don't ever need to use it because I have private insurance, which is kind of a different topic. But what he kind of boiled it down to is why not keep it at a state level regulations. So if everyone in Minnesota wanted to help out Minnesota citizens, like I have an interest in helping out everyone in Minnesota because they are my citizens and it's the state that I'm domiciled in. So if we want to have a higher Medicare, MNsure, Medica, whatever,
Insured, yeah.
MNsure, then we can pay through Minnesota taxes all the medical costs that would be afforded to any Minnesota citizen. We don't take care of Wisconsin. We don't take care of Iowa. We don't take care of any of the other states, but we take care of our own, which, I mean, we kind of already have a place set with MNsure and stuff like that to cater to Minnesota insurance. The problem is we don't get enough benefits from MNsure, so that's why we have to use a national Medicare system. So what he was saying is by giving all the medical rights to the states to determine how much taxes should be done. I mean, like, obviously, I feel like Texas, I mean, I'm still using this as an example, would probably have to pay higher premiums if they wanted to take care of Texas citizens, considering maybe the census of demographics that need to use medical services. So by affording each state their own authority on how much people pay into Medicare, so if you think about it, we have significantly less people to pay for, less people to take care of. You're still taking care of only Minnesota residents, like those smaller conservative towns like, Cloquet, Minnesota, or somewhere up north. They can get behind, more conservative people saying, we can afford to pay for Minnesota citizens. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of clash with a general overall national Medicare system where, say that, I mean, we're all putting it into a national pot and people are getting more benefits out of the people who are not getting anything. So that was his argument. And I thought it was compelling in a way. I don't think it is completely perfect by any means, but I think he had a good argument as to why that may have some benefits towards more people.
I mean, so is he kind of arguing a Medicaid for all program?
Sure.
Because
He's
Medicaid is
advocating
more
sort of like a
medicine.
Statewide. I mean,
he's
he's
advocating for federalism, and he's saying that, like,
Oh,
He's
he's very...
leave the
advocating-
unhealthy states behind, essentially.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
what my beef
yeah.
with that is that a lot of the disparity we see in like health conditions in people, especially in the South, which has like the highest infant mortality rate above like quote unquote developed nations is like in the American South. It's because of poverty, and it's because of how that intersects with in a lot of ways with like race and other things. So I think a state by state approach will just make the quality of healthcare available in these places is just going to be way worse, and it's just going to increase the disparities that are already there. So yeah, that's not the greatest solution, I don't think.
Right, and I think that's a really good point to make because like Minnesota has a pretty robust medical. I mean, they're probably top. They're top in the nation for having good Medicare services. So, going to states that don't have quality access to every single hospital and clinic, whatever. I mean, it does eliminate or it does restrict some people about what means of medical assistance they can get. So I think that was definitely an argument that could be made. So
Yeah, why are we even a country if we're not going to take care of each other in a way like that? I mean,
right.
You're that kind of like radical. I mean, look at the difference in quality of living that already exists and how that's going to further stratify, especially as like climate change advances and living conditions get worse and like wealth disparity gets worse. Like and I see why some people would say that because in Minnesota, like we have water, we have great medical care, we have agriculture, like we're doing pretty good. The apocalypse happened, like we're in a pretty good situation. We're already cold as hell, so cold as hell sounds funny, but like as global warming hits, like we're going to be living in a temperate zone for a lot longer than a lot of people. So looking at Minnesota, it's like, hey, if we just cut ourselves off from everybody else, like we're doing all right.
Right.
When in reality, it's like, okay, well, are we citizens of this state or are we citizens of this country or are we citizens of this world? And that's like a moral choice you have to make. How many people do you want to try to take care of? And I understand why people have the impetus to just be like, I just want to take care of like me and like Brad down the street and like maybe like my mayor's extended family. And like that's about as far as does anyone remember? There's like a study and it's like the number of people you are like able to actually emotionally like care about and be attached to.
It's like
Not that-
200 or something.
Not that many.
Yeah, it's
Like max. I don't know. That might even be high.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. It's like
it's like tribalism is real, like in the like evolutionary psychology of people, and I think that like that's part of human evolution is overcoming the tendency towards tribalism that we have like in our underlying psychology. It's like how do we become better and like care for
Right. Well, and
species.
it's also the economics of like a federal system as well. Like we could do it state by state, but the more power you get within the states, the more your bargaining power is for, making pharmaceuticals lower, making health insurance lower. Because if you go by kind of a state by state model, then that kind of opens the flood doors to say, well, why isn't all nationalized services at the state level. So why don't we have an Air Force that's just for Minnesota, and then Texas can
constitutional law has
have their own. Right. But I know, right, and we're putting that aside for this. Putting that aside for this argument, I mean, if we don't want each